Namaskar, good evening viewers. You're watching Sansad TV's live broadcast at 9 p.m. This is the news with me, Bhawna Nayar. Over the next 30 minutes, we bring you a roundup of all national and international news that you need to know. Let's begin with the top headlines of the day we are tracking this hour. Decks cleared for counting of votes in presidential election, counting to commence on Thursday at Parliament House. Both houses of Parliament disrupted over inflation and GST. Lok Sabha Speaker expresses strong displeasure. Rajya Sabha prevented from taking up question hour and zero hour. Pace and scale of COVID vaccination impressive, says Prime Minister Modi. Sends personal congratulatory messages to vaccinators for achieving 200 crore dose milestone. Rain alert in Uttarakhand, warning of heavy rain in many districts of Rajasthan. 3 flights diverted in Delhi, 40 delayed. And Ranil Wickremesinghe elected new president of Sri Lanka with 134 votes in 225-member parliament, says he looks forward to closer ties with India. Let's lunge on to some more important news of the day. Government tells central higher educational institutions to fill up reserved category vacancies in mission mode within a year. India and Namibia sign MOU on wildfire conservation to increase numbers of cheetah in India. Union Cabinet approves MOU on judicial cooperation between India and Maldives. No food grains wasted since 2014. Union Minister PIYUSH assures Lok Sabha that government will not allow wastage of rice and wheat. IT industry projected to grow 15.5% to $227 billion in 2022, says Minister of State for IT Rajiv Chandrasekhar. 77% decline in incidents of left-wing extremism in last decade, says MOS Home Nityanand Rai. NITI AAYOG to release third edition of India Innovation Index 2021 in New Delhi on Thursday. Japan, Singapore and South Korea top Henley Passport Index, India at 87th position. WHO declares outbreak of life-threatening Marburg virus in Western African country of Ghana after 2 people turned positive. And Prime Minister Modi tells athletes to forget expectations and do their best at Birmingham Commonwealth Games event. And now news in detail. The counting of votes for presidential election will begin on Thursday at 11 a.m. in Parliament House complex. Ballot boxes from all states have reached the Parliament House and under strict security. Ruling NDA's candidate Draupadi Murmu is facing opposition's Yashwant Sinha. Polling was held at the Parliament House and state assemblies across the country on 18th July. Kovind's tenure is ending on July 24 and the new president will take oath on July 25th. Let us now get a glimpse of what took place in Parliament today. Opposition parties continued their protest in the Rajya Sabha over issues like price rise and GST hike on essential commodities. The House was first adjourned till 2 p.m. and then for the day. Both question hour and zero hour could not be taken up in the upper house due to disruptions. As soon as the House resumed after lunch, Deputy Chairperson Harivansh called for discussion on weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems prohibition of unlawful activities, Amendment Bill 2022. But opposition parties led by Congress continued to disrupt proceedings, leading to adjournment of the House for the day.
आप कहते हैं कि आपको बिल पर बोलने का अवसर चाहिए, बिल पर बोलने का कल भी अवसर था, आज भी अवसर है। यह देश हित में बिल है, इंटरनेशनल कमिटमेंट है इसके लिए। प्लीज कोऑपरेट, गो बैक टू योर सीट्स।
Renowned former Olympic track and field athlete PT Usha took oath as Rajya Sabha MP today. For the third straight day, Lok Sabha proceedings were adjourned amid protest by opposition members. Opposition members walked into the wall soon after the House met, seeking to raise the issue of rising prices and imposition of GST on some daily use items. Speaker Om Birla assured members that he would allow a discussion on these issues during 0 hour if they returned to their seats. As the din continued, the House was first adjourned till 2 p.m. and then till 4 p.m. Amid din, the House took up matters of urgent attention under Rule 377. As noisy protests continued, the chair adjourned the House for the day. Moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded the efforts of all vaccinators as India crossed the milestone of 200 crore doses. In a letter, Prime Minister Modi said that the coming generations will be proud of India's achievement at the time of crisis. He wrote that the COVID-19 vaccination program has left none behind and showed that New India excels in last-mile delivery. Prime Minister Modi also responded to a tweet by Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, who congratulated the Prime Minister for the milestone. He said that India's vaccination drive against COVID-19 is big on speed and scale. He also noted that people have shown remarkable faith in science and taken their doses in a timely manner. 98% of India's adult population has received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, while 90% have been fully vaccinated. Also, 82% of adolescents aged 15 to 18 years have been vaccinated with the first dose, while 68% have got both doses. Now let's take a look at all the updates on the monsoon situation in the country. The Weather Department has warned of heavy rains in Gujarat. Non-stop showers have created flood-like situation in coastal areas of the state. Low-lying areas in Surat, Valsad, Navsari, Tapi, Dang have been submerged. A heavy rain warning in the next 24 hours has been issued in Valsad, Gir, Somnath and Junagadh. Talking about Rajasthan now, heavy rain has been predicted at many places in the next 24 hours. Record rains have been seen in Mount Abu, Tehsil that recorded 150 millimeters, Pushkar, Kota, Dambola, Sarwar and Udaipur, Vati, Relmagra and Khetri. A yellow alert has been sounded in Alwar, Bharatpur, Dausa, Dholpur, Karoli, Bikaner and Hanumangarh districts for Thursday. A red alert has been sounded for Uttarakhand because of heavy rains. Hemkund Yatra is halted due to a cloudburst in Chamoli. On the Rishikesh-Badrinath highway, 6 labourers were injured when an under-construction bridge collapsed near Narkota. Some people are still trapped under the rubble. Rescue operations are underway. And Delhi NCR has also been affected by the rain. At least 7 flights coming towards Delhi airport had to be diverted, while around 40 flights were delayed. Traffic was affected in Delhi due to waterlogging. An advisory was issued by traffic police to be mindful of the weather before leaving their homes. In Jammu and Kashmir now, 13 structures including a school building were washed away and at least 20 other structures were partially damaged in flash floods triggered by a cloudburst in Doda district. The district administration has issued an advisory in view of the inclement weather. An alert has been issued to people after the water level in Chenab increased, creating a possibility of flooding in Chenab and its tributaries. And now India and Namibia signed a crucial memorandum of understanding for reintroduction of cheetahs that were declared extinct in the country in 1952. The first batch comprising 4 male and as many as female cheetahs were arrived from Namibia in August. These cheetahs will find a new home in Kuno Palanpur National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Shiopur district. The cheetah got completely wiped out from India mainly due to overhunting and habitat loss. The last one died in 1948 in the Sel forest of Chhattisgarh's Korea district. And news from across the country now. Kerala has issued an SOP for isolation, sample collection and treatment of those infected or showing signs of monkeypox. The state has 2 cases of monkeypox. According to the SOP, suspected and probable cases will be treated separately and the district surveillance officer should be informed immediately. Terrorist attacks in Jammu and Kashmir declined to 229 in 2021 compared to 417 in 2018. Attacks on civilians also decreased from 33 in 2018 to 12 in 2021. On the recent attacks against Kashmiri Pandits, Minister of State for Home Nityanand Rai informed the Rajya Sabha in a written reply that the government has taken several measures for the safety of minorities in the valley. India reported 20,557 new COVID infections and 40 deaths in the last 24 hours. The national COVID-19 recovery rate is 98.47%, the Health Ministry said. India's vaccination coverage crossed 200 crore 61 lakh. And news from the world of business and economy now. Delhi RERA has told Delhi Development Authority DDA to register its properties with RERA to protect the interest of home buyers. The Delhi RERA chief said that action may be taken under the RERA Act 2016 against real estate developers who did not comply with regulations. More Indians are switching to electrical vehicles as nearly 13 lakh EVs are now registered in the country. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari told the Rajya Sabha on Wednesday. He said almost 3,000 EV charging stations have been sanctioned in 68 cities and more than 1,500 across expressways and highways. Soaring energy prices, escalating cost of FMCG products and food items led to a 40-year high in inflation figures in the UK. Russia's war in Ukraine has contributed much to the rising cost, just as the global economy was beginning to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Spurred by global market trends, BSE Sensex today jumped to 629 points, while NSE gained 180 points, with Reliance Industries, Infosys and TCS driving the growth. European markets were slow, while the most Asian markets maintained a strong momentum, with Nikkei 225, Hang Seng, Taiwan and Kospi gaining between 1 to 2%. Slipping into a short break here. On the other side, wildfires rage across European countries, fueled by unprecedented heat waves. All this and much more on the other side of this short break. You stay tuned to Sansad TV.
Those in favor, please say aye.
जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए,
I think the ayes have it.
हवालों के पक्ष में हुआ।
Ayes have it. The bill is passed.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching the news, and time now for all the big developments from the Russia-Ukraine war front. Russian President Vladimir Putin has won staunch support from Iran for his country's military campaign in Ukraine. Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei said that the West opposes an independent and strong Russia. Khamenei also said that if Russia hadn't sent troops into Ukraine, it would have faced an attack from NATO later. Putin met with Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on his trip to Tehran. They also discussed a UN-backed proposal to resume exports of Ukrainian grain. Ukraine's forces damaged a strategically important bridge in Russian-occupied southern Ukraine. Russia-backed administration in Kherson region said. It stated that the Ukrainian military struck the crucial Antonovsky Bridge across the Dnieper River with missiles 11 times, causing serious damage. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky dubbed the fresh round of attacks on a village in country's Odessa region as terror. He claimed Russian forces fired 7 ship-launched Caliber cruise missiles against a village in a rural field. The missiles hit an ordinary rural field and a non-working farm, rural houses, outdoor buildings and the House of Culture. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that it is the West's own fault that the flow of Russian natural gas to European customers has dwindled and warned that it could go down further. The statement comes ahead of European Union's meeting to discuss emergency plans to reduce gas demand within months. EU fears that Moscow could cut off gas to wreak economic and political havoc in Europe in the winter. Syria, a strong ally of Russia, said on Wednesday that it is formally breaking diplomatic ties with Ukraine in response to a similar move by Kiev. In late June, Syria became the first nation to recognize the independence and sovereignty of Ukraine's Russia-backed eastern Luhansk and Donetsk region. After this, Ukraine had severe ties with Syria. And time now for some other global updates. A big development coming in from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has finally got a new president. Acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe was on Wednesday elected as the country's 8th president by parliament. The 73-year-old six-time former prime minister secured 134 votes in the 225-member house. The new president says that Sri Lanka is in a very difficult situation and there are big challenges ahead. Let's take a look at the new developments taking place in the island nation.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රී රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමා ලැබී ඇති ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 134යි.
Sri Lankan lawmakers chose six-time Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe as president on Wednesday. Wickremesinghe succeeds former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who left the country in the wake of protests against the worst economic crisis facing the island country. Rajapaksa had appointed Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister in May, hoping to bring stability. Wickremesinghe became acting president after Rajapaksa resigned last week. In the voting on Wednesday, 223 lawmakers voted, while 2 MPs abstained. 4 votes were rejected, while 219 were declared valid. Wickremesinghe secured 134 votes. Leftist leader Anura Kumara secured just 3 votes. A seasoned politician with wide experience in diplomatic and international affairs, Wickremesinghe has been leading crucial talks on an economic bailout package with the International Monetary Fund. The new president will have a mandate to serve out the rest of Rajapaksa's term that ends in November 2024. This is for the first time in 44 years that Sri Lanka's parliament has directly elected a president. The only previous occasion where the presidency became vacant mid-term was in 1993 when President Ranasinghe was assassinated. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Moving on, former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak and Foreign Secretary Liz Truss made it to the final stage to become Britain's next Prime Minister. The result on Wednesday kickstarts the last stage of the contest to replace Boris Johnson. Sunak led in all rounds of the voting among Conservative lawmakers. 11 candidates originally put their names forward, but in a 5th and final ballot of Conservative lawmakers, the junior Trade Minister Penny Mordaunt was eliminated. Sunak 137 out of 357 votes versus Truss 113 and Mordaunt 105. More news from across the world now. The US House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed legislation to protect same-sex and interracial marriages. The vote was 267, 157 with dozens of Republicans joining Democrats for passage. The bill was a move to confront the aggressive Supreme Court after it overturned a previous decision that now made abortion illegal. A new UN report says at least 700 people have been killed since the Taliban took over last year. Most of the casualties were linked to attacks by Islamic State group affiliates. The report also highlighted the poor situation of women and girls since the Taliban takeover. A vice president of the European Parliament, Nicola Beer, is on a visit to Taipei. She called for China to open a mutual dialogue with a self-governing island democracy. She also said Taipei participation in the World Health Assembly and urged European Union to upgrade its representation in Taiwan. China condemned Beer's visit and the European Parliament adoption of pro-Taiwan resolutions. A huge jellyfish swarm has come for its annual summer visit to coast near HAIFA. The swarm is expected to stay for about a month or two and move on to its next destination. But the huge swarm is terrorizing swimmers who are trying to keep cool at the height of summer. The Yellowstone National Park in US reopened for public after the June flooding. The flooding damaged roads, water and wastewater systems, power lines and other park infrastructure. Unprecedented rain caused the flooding, rock slides and mudslides in the park that disrupted the wildlife and vegetation in the park. And talking about Italy now, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi on Wednesday challenged partner parties in his governing coalition to come together after a key party withheld its support. He suggested that he will continue to lead if coalition members recommitted to a pact of unity that created his government a year ago. Let's see what are Draghi's conditions for staying in government.
Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi stepped back from resigning, calling for a new pact to save his unity government from collapse. He said it was impossible to ignore the many Italians calling for the coalition to survive. Draghi told Italy's Senate that a completely new agreement was the only way if we want to stay together. He said that they owe it to all Italians. In an unprecedented situation, political leaders, mayors, doctors' associations and ordinary citizens have been urging Draghi to stay in office after he offered to resign last week. Draghi had offered to resign after a key party from the Five-Star Movement boycotted a confidence vote on a bill to deal with the economic crisis. Italy is struggling with soaring inflation and energy prices, Russia's war in Ukraine, and implementing a plan to use 200 billion euros in European Union pandemic recovery funds. Draghi, who was drafted to head the government last year, had long insisted he would never head a second government or one without the 5 stars. He said flatly last week that he would not govern by ultimatum, a reference to 5-star demands. Draghi laid out priorities for Parliament to consider in rebuilding from the top the majority needed for the government to work efficiently. After Draghi's speech, senators offered replies and gave Draghi a chance to respond. Another day of debate is scheduled on Thursday in the lower chamber of Parliament. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And after the political turmoil in Italy, let's talk about the global warming that is hitting European countries. Firefighters across Europe are struggling to contain wildfires fueled by heat waves that are ravaging hillsides and forests in Greece, France, Spain, England, Portugal and Russia. Some countries are reporting improved conditions with a respite from severe heat wave conditions. Let's get into the details of punishing heat waves affecting European countries.
In Spain, firefighters battled blazes in the northwestern Zamora province as scorching temperatures fueled ferocious wildfires in the country. Zamora recorded 2 deaths from the wildfires in 2 days. One of the victims was a firefighter. More than 30 forest fires around Spain have forced the evacuation of thousands of people and blackened 220 square kilometers of forest and scrub. In Greece, hundreds of Greek residents were ordered to leave their homes in northeast Athens after high winds fanned a large forest fire. Fire service officials said 11 firefighting aircraft and 5 helicopters were deployed to stop the flames on the slope of Mount Penteli. Smoke from the fire blanketed parts of the city's skyline. France had some respite after a week of raging wildfires in southwest Yahon region. 2 huge fires feeding on tinder dry pine forests broke out on 12th of July and forced tens of thousands of people to flee homes. Firefighters continued to battle flames 11 kilometers long and 7 kilometers wide in an area of 32 kilometers. In Russia, the situation in the Khabarovsk region and the Sakha Republic remained alarming. Local authorities told residents of Khabarovsk to use masks and respirators to protect them from the smoke. Russian authorities also detected the excess concentration of nitrogen dioxide and other chemical substances in regions affected by the forest fires. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And news from the world of sports. Beginning with cricket now, Ben Stokes could not get a winning farewell on his last ODI as South Africa defeated England by 62 runs in the first match of the 3-match series. South Africa made 333 for 5 batting first. England were bowled out for 271. Pakistan defeated Sri Lanka by 4 wickets to win the first test of the 2-match series played at GALLE. The target for the visitors was 342. Opener Abdullah Shafiq remained not out on 160. The 6 teams in new South African T20 League, which is set to begin in January next year, have all been bought by owners of franchises in the Indian Premier League. India finished ISSF Shooting World Cup campaign, topping the medals tally with a haul of 15 medals. On the final day, Indian trio of Anish Bhanwala, Vijay Sidhu and Sameer won silver in men's 25-meter rapid-fire pistol team event. 2 Commonwealth Games-bound athletes, sprinter S. Dhanalakshmi and triple jumper Aishwarya Babu, have returned positive for banned drugs. Both have been handed provisional suspensions. And before we wrap, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Decks cleared for counting of votes in presidential election, counting to commence on Thursday at Parliament House. Both houses of Parliament disrupted over inflation and GST. Lok Sabha Speaker expresses strong displeasure. Rajya Sabha prevented from taking up question hour and 0 hour. Pace and scale of COVID vaccination impressive, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Sends personal congratulatory messages to vaccinators for achieving 200 crore dose milestone. Rain alert in Uttarakhand, warning of heavy rain in many districts of Rajasthan. 3 flights diverted in Delhi, 40 delayed. And Ranil Wickremesinghe elected new president of Sri Lanka with 134 votes in 225-member parliament. Says he looks forward to closer ties with India. And that's a wrap of today's bulletin. Thank you for watching. For more updates, keep watching Sansad TV. Good night. See you tomorrow. Namaskar.